For the artist at the start of day, may morning be astir with the harvest of night, your mind quickening to the errors of a new question, your eyes seduced by some unintended glimpse that cut right through the surface to a source. May this be a morning of innocent beginning, when the gift within you slips clear of the sticky web of the personal with its hurt and its hauntings and fixed fortress corners. A morning when you become a pure vessel for what wants to ascend from silence. May your imagination know the grace of perfect danger, to reach beyond imitation and the wheel of repetition, deep into the call of all, the unfinished and unsolved, until the wheel of the unknown yields and something original begins to stir toward your senses and grow stronger in your heart. In order to come to birth in a clean line of form that claims from time a rhythm not yet heard, that calls space to a different shape. May it be its own force field and dwell uniquely between the heart and the light to surprise the hungry eye.
I think if I could get you to do one thing, I would say when you get to the point that you really feel highly motivated to just towards keeping your virtue, then you'll discover quite quickly just how extraordinary a life was meant to be and could be.
Welcome. Thank you for being here. I'm Sabine Schneider, Curator of Learning, and I'm delighted to be here with Carl White.
Happy to be here.
Yeah. I connect to the idea that you see yourself as a visual poet more than...
Yeah, you know, the idea of poetry is maybe my my highest goal. It's like I see poetry as the thing that comes closest to touching it.
Right.
You know, we let go of syntax, we let go of grammar, we let go of all the rules, but we use the language we have. We try to express what it feels like, not what it is. You know, a fox runs quickly, whereas a poem I try to understand the feeling in a fox's heart as it's being chased. You know, it's like that's it. Like that's the place I want to go to, into our hearts, and try to speak about that. And so poetry for me, it's like, yeah, it's I wouldn't think of myself in the sense of a traditional poet, but for sure, I feel like I'm painting poems. Yeah, absolutely.
So how do some of these ideas relate to the Zen garden?
This piece, 15 Stones it's called, is loosely inspired by an ancient 15th century Zen garden in Japan, in Tokyo. The creator of it was anonymous, and the layout of the stones in this beautiful kind of rectangular space never affords a view of every stone. There's always something hidden. The Zen garden is a place of contemplation, to just sit and look inward. For hundreds of years, we've sought to understand these stones. What is the meaning? What is the purpose? Why can you not see that one? What is it about? And this is the kind of the futile pursuit of a human, is that we're looking for meaning. There is no meaning. There's simply 15 stones sitting. We bring the meaning to the stones. We bring the meaning to all of it. It's empty and meaningless. No thing has inherent meaning or value. It just is. It's a collection of atoms vibrating. We then add all of our stuff to it. So the idea of being able to sit with something, it's laden with text, which is I should allude to, because this all comes from the German philosopher Heidegger, who believed that we emerged into our modern selves through language.
Right.
Prior to language, we would have just been an experience of senses without an ability to truly express it. And we created language as a way to speak of it. But in doing that, we stepped out of the moment. Because we're now creating, even now I'm creating the words to speak. I'm not completely here. It's a very interesting place where you're trying to be in a space. So language runs through these broken vessels. And the broken vessels also alludes to a Judeo-Christian smashing of the vessels, in which the beauty, the power, the magnitude of God could not be contained within a vessel. I also see this in the Zen tea ceremony, in which we have to empty our cup so that we can take something new in, the questioning, the letting go. So there's these interesting kind of connections that start to happen between different cultures, different mythologies, different systems, but it's a sameness. It's just our attempt to understand it. And so, you know, for me, making all this work is about just a place to be and to look and to think and to question and to poke holes in it. So the idea of a Zen garden that had language running through it.
Right.
It was an interesting place for me to kind of, I would like to sit here and contemplate it, you know? So it's, yeah, it doesn't come with an answer, it doesn't come with a definition, it just simply is. And what we bring to it is correct. If you hate it, if you love it, if you fall asleep, it's all exactly what is supposed to occur within that space.
Just how extraordinary a life was meant to be and could be.
There was only the sound of the sea. Would you like to speak to the great wave?
Absolutely. This work, this body of work that comprises the last year and a bit, I would say, all emerged through several avenues. And one of them, I was looking at Hokusai's Great Wave at Kanagawa, which was a woodblock print and the most popular woodblock print of all time. It was created around 1679 in Japan. At that time, Japan was a very insular island that was maintaining its traditional beliefs in the emperor and the Shinto religion. The samurai were still roaming. Meanwhile, in Europe, across the sea, change was occurring. There was the Industrial Revolution was emerging, the printing press was underway, a new world was opening. Japan had no interest in it. They wanted to maintain their quiet little island and stick to the traditions of the past. Hokusai, being a keen observer of people, made this series of woodblocks, and one of them was the Great Wave. In the Great Wave, there's beautiful ultramarine blue wave curls above Mount Fuji. Within that wave is a little wooden fishing boat with two fishermen that look up at this towering wave. In Europe, in the West, we read images from left to right.
Right.
So what we see is this big curling wave and a little fishing boat moving. To the people of Japan, they read the other direction. This changes the whole context of the picture. You now see two little fishermen staring up at this massive wave that is about to topple them. It's a very different way of being with change. A wave is a perfect metaphor, a perfect observation of change. It's in a constant state of flux, and yet it's always the same. It's this beautiful place to be. As we were emerging into this current pandemic, I could see this great change occurring. I could see this great wave. And I could see people resisting it. I could see people flowing with it. And their experience was very different. So this wave became a really interesting metaphor for me of how we are with this emergence into each new moment. Do we resist it and cling to the past of what should have been, what could have been, what it's supposed to be? Or do we simply go with what it is? Not even what it could be, but just what it is. Surfing has always been both a pursuit and an analogy for me, because surfers join the wave in the most literal sense. And any surfer worth their salt is on a spiritual quest with those things. It's not an action sport. It is about joining the flow of the universe. You connect with it all in this beautiful, fluid way of being. And that's truly what it's about. So this great wave really kind of inspired a lot of this work. At the same time, I was kind of randomly choosing the color blue to do some drawings. And I was kind of always in the inquiry, always questioning why I had chosen blue. I started to look into blue. Vasily Kandinsky, the abstract artist, wrote a book called Concerning the Spiritual in Art. And he posited that there's this harmonic vibration of color, and at the highest level sits blue.
Absolutely.
I then only glanced across world history, and I could see the blue of Krishna's skin, I could see the blue of the Virgin Mary's robes, I could see the blue in Buddhist art, I could see Giotto's sky, the heavenly blue, the lapis lazuli of the Renaissance. It was the most coveted color, the most expensive. It's all this deep blue, this beautiful, ever-changing, reflective blue. It's our sky, it's our water. We talk of the blue bloods. It all started to connect, this change, this shift, this blue, and out of that emerged this body of work, literally. It just kind of washed over me, and I just wrote it. I just followed it, you know? So yeah, that's kind of the inspiration there.
To feel that you're alive, be in touch with your heart, that's it. That's it.
So I'm burned but not consumed, moving into forest imagery. How come we are walking into the forest?
The forest is kind of it's a place for me to wander, and I often, in the being of art, it's kind of like going for a walk in the forest without having a destination. It's just wandering, being in the wonder of it. You just take a step, there's something in the way, you change. There's no place to go. There's no place to be. You're simply just being in it. So a forest has always been kind of a place for that, because it's at once filled with obstacles, it's challenging, and yet there's paths through it all. So it's kind of as I learn from the art, you know, I'm in the belief that the art is the teacher, not the artist. I just kind of try to glimpse it and make a picture of that. And then I am left with this thing that I try to understand.
Right.
I try to learn from it. And so even as we're speaking, I'm in the inquiry of what the forest is, because it's constantly emerging for me of what it is.
That makes sense.
Yeah, so it's beautiful. I love having these conversations because it allows me to peek my head in and see it. So yeah, the forest, and I will say it's a new symbol. It's like, there's a couple pieces in this exhibition that the forest kind of found its way into. I think maybe as I speak, it's got a lot to do with the grounding of the earth. You know, the other piece is called My Dreams Became the Sky. It's about this, you know, the gravitational pull of the earth.
Yeah.
Right? It holds us to it. It's the weight, it's the thing. And it's, part of it is the freeing ourselves from that as well. Everything is like a conundrum. It's like you know, I'm constantly trying to flip this puzzle and understand it. Yeah. So the forest, that's a great question. It's emerging, and it's I think I'm maybe really just starting to wander in that space, and it's yeah, it's great.
Moving towards the color
Red
red and pink.
Yeah.
And quite a shift in symbol.
Yep. This is an interesting piece. This is called A Problem with God 2, Casablanca. I painted this painting. This is the third attempt at it. It's an image that has, maybe it's pursued me as much because I haven't really understood it. And it's a riddle. It's a thing I keep attempting to understand, and then hence the title, A Problem with God, because I exist in this space where I believe everything and nothing.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know what this thing called God is. I know that it's 3 letters that are filled with books of meaning in an attempt to express the unknowable. And one day I was watching the Whirling Dervish, which are a branch of Sufi mystics that spin in these beautiful dances. They spin to this droning beat into this ecstatic kind of state. I mean, they really join it. They really enter it. And I was just like, you know, in awe of this spectacle, this beautiful transformation through movement. And as the fabrics flowed out, it seemed so did their sense of being. And it spiraled up into the heavens. It was just this really magical experience. And so I was trying to capture something of that. And I realized that it actually challenged me in my concept of God, of the spirit, of something bigger than ourselves. You know, I've had numerous experiences through everything from jumping out of an airplane to meditating with Buddhist monks in Nepal to falling in love, in which I glimpse it. I know there's something bigger. Right? And I don't know what it is. I know it exists. I've seen it, I've tasted it. And it's this, once again, this kind of futile pursuit attempt to capture that butterfly, and it's open the net and it's gone. And Casablanca keeps eluding me, and so I keep chasing it.
It takes mindfulness to come to a human life, to come to a fortunate human life.
Everything is gold.
Mm-hmm.
I recollect this work of yours, and I see a relationship here, looking through your mother's eyes.
Yeah.
And here, I think for the first time, we show the work in a form of a triptych with gold leaf writing, handwriting of yours.
Yep, absolutely. You know, the calligraphic mark of handwriting. I had a studio in East Vancouver, and I would go there very early in the morning. And one day I was walking along Hastings, and I glanced up, and there was a boy on the roof of a building. I was kind of like, what's he doing up there? And I stopped to kind of observe him, and I could see his arm swinging around. I didn't know what he was up to. He was going to throw something. And all of a sudden, he hit the bomb of the spray bomb, and he painted this beautiful circle. And I was kind of like, I was in awe of this movement. And then he started tagging and doing his thing, and it was this kind of beautiful calligraphic mark making. He was expressing it. And this idea of a calligrapher, we think of it as a lost art of why don't our children handwrite anymore? And yet, these street artists are doing it all the time, right in front of us. And I often think that those artists back in the 15th century would have been illuminating medieval manuscripts, or they would have been the scribes of ancient Egypt. You know, they care so deeply about that mark.
Yes.
And calligraphy's always been it's the word of the Heideggerian languaging, and it's the aesthetics of the beautiful mark. It's like this kind of perfect world for me where these two things coalesce. And I mean, when I write, it's so fluid that I can just, I often write poems and thoughts into the paint itself, or I'll scratch things, and they often emerge like full born without having to rethink them or edit them or correct them in the moment. They emerge out of the fluidity of the line. The line almost like just writes itself. It's a really interesting experience. And so, you know, even this text on this wall here, there was no writing that I was going to write. We just decided. This whole piece emerged in the installation. We didn't really know what it would be.
Right.
And it was just, things started to speak to themselves and to each other, and we just kind of followed it and let it be, and then it wanted some text. And so I literally just started moving my arm like that kid on the roof of the building. I just let it go.
Everything is gold, and the opening up of the canvas and peeling it open.
The opening up, I mean, that's it in a sentence. You know, I mean, you think of as we move through life, we probably close, right? With each experience that's not fulfilled, with each hurt that occurs to our heart, with each dream that stutters, we close a little more, you know? And I really think it's all about opening up. Just keep opening our hearts. Just be vulnerable, be exposed, because it's there that our true being is. So for me, you know, this opening of the canvas, this kind of peeling back of the layers is like, there's something that becomes precious about a thing you make. And it's what we've learned, right? As children, we get our first piece of art and they pin it on the fridge and we're like, we imagine we're after greatness. And it actually does us a disservice because the object becomes precious. The object is just what's left over of the experience. It's the shed skin of a snake. It's the marker of growth. It's a thing that we made, but we're not it. And it can trap us. So for me, there's a destruction that has to occur to free myself from it.
The invitation is not to show how inventive and imaginative you are, but how much you can notice what you're already part of.
Here we are at the love letters.
Yep. One for each of us.
200 or something, what? Yes. And more. The notion of unconditional love. You've talked about absolute love.
Yeah.
And what was it like finding those letters in the attic?
You know, I might have noticed I'm a bit of a romantic at heart, and the idea of writing a letter, a love letter to somebody I cared about, I loved, I've kind of done since I was young, right? And it was often very directed at a specific person.
Mm-hmm.
And as I grew and looked at what love is and started to understand it at a much deeper level than just romantic love, I started to realize that whilst we are all made of stardust, I think ultimately we're held together by love. And so it emerged, I'm sure not by accident, during this time of isolation and separation and people being disconnected from each other, that I started to realize that I loved everyone, because I know that we are the same. You know, there's a beautiful exercise that you may have done called the being with exercise.
Yeah.
Yeah, in which you make eye contact with a stranger. And the one I did, there was about 40 of us and we were in a line. This was pre-COVID, of course, but we almost touched noses. We were this close, you could feel the breath of the other on you. And you just locked eyes. And there's discomfort, there's fear, there's anxiety, all the things arise out of our insecurities.
Yeah.
You know, do I have something on my nose? And it's just all garbage. And the longer you stare, it falls away. We open up. And you start to really look into this other person's eyes. And I mean, my experience with this elderly lady, whom I'm sure I may have seen a little scary to her at the time, and, you know, for her, I was like, you know, she judging me, there was all this stuff. We fell in love. There was this, we saw ourselves in the other. and who we were just disappeared. And with that being said, I realized that I wanted to write a love letter to everyone. You know, that experience, that exchange of something that I sat in a moment in my life and I wrote the most heartfelt words I could in that instant. Mm-hmm. I wrote them to everyone. To me, it was just, there's no being that I wrote it to. I wrote it to the sense of being. And then, you know, art in its presentation becomes quite precious. And so in my, you know, as we've spoken about, my, you know, breaking down, destroying, letting go, there's also a part of me that wants the engagement with the art to be more intimate, mm-hmm. to allow a real human exchange. Mm-hmm. And so this idea that maybe there could be a piece that each viewer could take mm-hmm. a part of, almost taking a piece of me, like allowing it to be open and to just be plucked. And it's like, that way I get to dissolve into the stars, they get to engage with the experience. It was this kind of like really beautiful exchange I could see happening. So I kind of, I set an intention to write a love letter for each day of my studio practice working up to the exhibition. Ended up being just over 200, I believe, are in there. And each day I would kind of enter the studio in the moment and I would write a letter. I'd begin the day with this love letter. And it was just of that moment. It wasn't connected to the previous. It wasn't about the work I was doing. It was just a heartfelt letter of love to somebody. And I just slowly pasted them on this board, and I framed it to place it in the context of the gallery and to contain it. And the idea is that everyone can come and take one and do with it what they please. You know, they can walk out and cast it to the wind, they can feed it to their dog, they can frame it. It's like, it's not about the object, it's about the exchange, the interaction, mm-hmm. you know, and I think it's become so we've become so aware of how much we need that, especially when we've been isolated. We realize that what we really miss is mm-hmm. a hug, a shared conversation, you know, just bumping into somebody on the street. It's just like, that's why we've ended up in cities. That's why we've ended up in tribes, is because we want to be together. We want to connect. Because when we connect, we get bigger than ourselves. We get outside of ourselves. And that being with exercise, it forces you to get out of your stories mm-hmm. and actually just join this other being. And you actually enter this state of absolute. You know, the idea of love being conditional, or being about this or being that, is it even love? Love exists. For me, it's, you know, we call it G-O-D, I think maybe it's L-O-V-E, like it's this, it's the unnameable, it's the thing, you know, it's what it's all about. You know, the Beatles so beautifully, in the end, the love you make is equal to the love you take, or I might have mixed it up there, but it's really it. What we put out there is who we are, not what we take in, you know, and it's, so this was just, it's the first step in this exchange, and I'm not sure where it goes from here, but I hope that we emerge from this pandemic and everyone can come down and take a little piece home, and yeah, I love you.
The exhibition is here at the Art Gallery till May 30th. And the love letters are waiting.
We're here for the taking, yes.
I'm sure many of you are eager to come and visit, having the experience of hearing and listening to Carl and his not only ideas, but the way he makes art and thinks about art and lives art. So I want to thank you.
Thank you.
Chance to be part of this happens briefly. The invitation is not to show how inventive and imaginative you are, but how much you can notice what you're already part of. And appreciate it and share it.